Final X is here. That means it's time for Team USA to decide their wrestling team that they're sending to Kazakhstan this September. So let's talk all about what's happening at Rutgers in Lincoln and which guys are going to win. Let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. Hello wrestling fans and welcome to the Fanco Wrestling Show. My name's Josiah, I'm the host of your show, and this is the last time I will be in this studio on the Fanco Wrestling Show. That's right, I'm actually moving, and I'm actually moving to a place where the World Team Trials were held this past weekend. And there is a lot of wrestling news to talk about this week as far as Final X and what's going on. I'm going to take you through a preview of what's going on in men's freestyle. Now, at Final X, if you're unfamiliar with how it works, that's okay. There's actually another video on my channel that explains exactly the process of Final X and how everybody makes it to this Final X process. Now, Final X is happening in two places, Rutgers and Lincoln, Nebraska. And these are the two locations. There are 30 different weights in men's freestyle, women's freestyle, and Greco wrestling. Today, I'm talking about men's freestyle and which guys I think are going to win. So let's get into exactly, first of all, what's happening at Rutgers. So Rutgers is the first Final X event that will be happening on June 8th. And with all these Final X events, you can watch them on Flow Wrestling. Now, like I said, I'm just talking about men's freestyle. So if you're interested in checking out the other weight previews, I'll link to an article, Flow Wrestling article in the description below. So let's go weight by weight, who is wrestling and who I think is going to win. Now, Rutgers has a lot of great guys wrestling at Rutgers, I should say, not Rutgers team. You got Downey versus Zane. You have Kyle Dake versus Alex Dieringer. You have Taylor versus Pat Downey. You have Jaden Cox versus Bo Nickel. And of course, you have Nick Wazowski versus Gable Stevenson. Now, these are going to be phenomenal matches. So let's break them down match by match. So first of all, at 65 kilos, you have Yanni Diakomalis versus Zane Rutherford. Now, these two have wrestled before. They actually wrestled about a month or so ago at the US Open. And if you do remember, Yanni beat Zane. He beat him in around a last second takedown. They wrestled a pretty tight match, and I think both of these guys wrestled well. I think both of them have the potential to win. But I think Yanni has really been on fire. I mean, let's think about this. Yanni has gone from a two-time national champ. Then he went to the US Open, teched Jordan Oliver, beat Zane, and in the finals. Then he went to beat the streets, beat the #1 ranked guy in the world in Puna. This guy's on fire. And look, Yanni is just going to keep on rolling. And that's why, even though I'm a big Zane Train fan, listen, I'm one of the biggest Zane fans out there, but I have to give Yanni the victory here. I think he's going to make his first ever senior men's freestyle world team at Final X. Moving on to 79 kilograms, you have Kyle Dake versus Alex Dieringer. So Dieringer is, he's wrestled very well up until this point. He got his revenge over Zahid Valencia this past weekend at World Team Trials, who Zahid beat him last year, but Dieringer beat him this year and was just looking so strong at the US Open and the World Team Trials. Now, these two wrestled, and I think what's interesting here is looking at the guys who have wrestled in the past, whether it's in college, whether it's at the US Open, World Team Trials, or some other international event. And these two actually have wrestled, Dake and Dieringer. They wrestled at the 2017 World Team Trials whenever Kyle Dake won. Now, what do I think is going to happen here? Well, the thing is, Kyle Dake actually hasn't wrestled in a little while. And that's the tough thing with, with this process is if you are a returning World Team medalist, well, you just get to sit out until the finals of Final X. Dake didn't wrestle the US Open. He didn't wrestle World Team Trials. So what exactly is going to happen here? Well, I think still Dake is going to pull off the victory against Dieringer and end up on top at 79 kilograms, making the world team there. At 86 kilos, this is a very interesting match for a couple of reasons. And this is David Taylor versus Pat Downey. And as I'm going through this, making my predictions, I would just want to, make sure that you guys are commenting below who you think is going to make the world team. And let me know if you think I'm right or wrong and where you agree or disagree. I love to start a conversation below. But at 86 kilos, you have David Taylor versus Pat Downey. And if you did watch the World Team Trials, you know that Pat Downey had a little bit of a crazy things happen after the match. I'll say that whenever he was wrestling Nick Heflin, Heflin didn't want to shake his hand. Downey was getting on him, and then Downey gets on Twitter. He's calling out everybody and their child about this match and the whole process, all this stuff. And look, Downey has wrestled very, very well, and the thing too with David Taylor now, he is a returning world team medalist. Of course, David Taylor took gold last year at the world team or at Worlds, but if you watch the Beat the Streets, you'll know that he was hurt. He got hurt whenever he was wrestling, and he had the injury default out of that match within the first, I think it was the first period, like really quick into the match. And so I don't know exactly how David Taylor's doing. I would assume that he's just been resting that over the past couple of weeks in preparation for the Worlds, for Final X, so that he can actually make the team. Now, I'm hoping that he can wrestle and has a shot to make the team. Otherwise, Downey's going to, potentially take advantage of that, of Taylor, of his, weaknesses in his knee. Or he made his injury default out, which I hope is not the case, because David Taylor, I believe, is the best guy for the weight. So I have to give David Taylor the win here if he's able to wrestle. Moving on, still at Rutgers at 92 kilos, we have J'den Cox, who is the returning world team champion, wrestling the most recent NCAA champion at 197 pounds in Bo Nickel. Bo knows wrestling, and he is going to take it to J'den Cox. Now, Bo has kind of cruised through a couple of the tournaments. He's wrestled really well at the World Team Trials in Raleigh, and I see him wrestling really well in Final X. Now, he's not in his home stadium. He's not in Rec Hall, neither is J'den Cox, but these two guys are going to have a great match. This will be really interesting because these two have not wrestled before. Bo's never made a world team, but Cox has been wrestling very, very well. Now, of course, Cox, the returning medalist, or returning champion, it's going to be tough to beat. But if there's one thing that I know, it's that Bo always shows up. And that's why, in this case, I have to give the win to Bo Nickel. Would I be surprised if J'den Cox won? No, I really wouldn't be surprised. But I have to give Bo the win here. Moving on to the last weight at Rutgers, before we get on to what's happening at Lincoln and all that, which you want to make sure that you listen to all of what's going on at Lincoln. But first, let's finish up Rutgers at 125 kilos. And this may be my most anticipated match, at least at Rutgers, is Nick Wazowski versus Gable Stevenson. Now, Wazowski is a returning bronze medalist. Last year at Worlds, he won bronze. And Stevenson, of course, you may remember this year at Nationals in the college level, Stevenson as a true freshman. He's a true freshman now. Made it to the NCAA semifinals before losing to the eventual champ in Anthony Cassar, and he ended up taking 30 battle back. He wrestled really well. But Stevenson, ever since then, he's really been on a move. He wants to make a world team, and I think it's possible. Now, let's look at these two a little bit. So, Stevenson, if you watch World Team Trials, you may know that he wrestled Adam Kuhn. Now, Adam Kuhn, he's no chump, clearly, but Stevenson kind of took it to him, and he had a pretty strong victory over Kuhn, and that's why I have to say that Stevenson's been on fire. Now, Wazowski actually beat Kuhn last year in Final X, so if Kuhn would have made it back there, it would have been a great rematch, and I always love seeing those rematches, but Stevenson beat him. Now, Stevenson, the interesting thing here is he's actually trained with Wazowski, and another guy who may be making the world team in Kyle Snyder. So, Who do I think will win this match? Well, I have to give it to Gable Stevenson. Now, that is Final X Rutgers, but let's move on and now talk about what's going on at Final X Lincoln. This will be another exciting thing. This one is happening on June 15th. And of course, Rutgers is happening the 8th. This Final X Lincoln is happening on June 15th. And we have another 5 USA men's freestyle senior team that is going to be wrestling here. 5 weights out of the 10 possible weights. 5 wrestling here, 5 wrestling at Rutgers. And as I said, you know, this is only for men's freestyle. So if you're interested in learning more about the other weights, make sure you check that out in the description below. But this is going to be very exciting because we have some really highly anticipated matches, including this first matchup. And the first matchup at 57 kilograms is Thomas Gilman versus Dayton Fix. Now, these are 2 guys that like to scrap, especially looking at Thomas Gilman. And Thomas Gilman's a guy who people love to hate and they love to love, especially if you're an Iowa fan. And, you know, although I consider myself I'm a Penn State wrestling fan. However, I just like to see great wrestling, and that's why I love watching, you know, Thomas Gilman win, and I like to see what he does on and off the mat. But right now, these 2 wrestling at Final X, 57 kilograms, and Gilman, they actually wrestled last year at Final X, and Fix and Gilman. And Gilman actually won both those matches. He won by a score of 6-3 and 2-1. And what's really exciting about Lincoln, Nebraska, this Final X event, is that there are a few rematches that we get to see from last year, which I think is really exciting, including this one. So then what happened is at the U.S. Open this year, Fix ended up beating Gilman. He got his revenge on Gilman. He beat him 8-4, and he wrestled really, really well. You know, I think at college level, Fix was a little bit non-aggressive, especially if you're looking at the national finals, which, you know, some guys tend to wrestle a little bit differently in the national finals, especially if they get a lead, they want to hold that off. But I think in that match, and Gilman versus Fix, the U.S. Open, Fix was just firing off, taking shots. Same with Gilman. Fix just ultimately ended up with the victory, but Gilman took the long route now, ended up winning the World Team Trials, and these 2 will wrestle in finalists. Who do I have winning? Well, I have Thomas Gilman winning. I think Thomas Gilman has beat Fix in the past. He's able to beat him. I don't think this will be an easy victory by any means. And Fix will, I think, still win one of those matches, because if you guys do or do not know, this is a best 2 out of 3 challenge series. So, you know, you could see Gilman winning the first one, Fix the second one, and I think Gilman's going to win that third one. Just my prediction. And moving on to 61 kilos, you have Joey Colon versus Tyler Graf. This is pretty exciting to me because, you know, Tyler Graf kind of, I don't want to say he came out of nowhere, but, you know, this is a guy I wouldn't necessarily expect to be wrestling for a world team spot, but he's wrestled really, really well, and he deserves that spot. So Graf hit a strong world team trials tournament, and I think, you know, obviously that's what put him here, but he actually lost in the quarters of the U.S. Open this year, which, you know, he goes from losing in the quarters to then, you know, winning the World Team Trials, which is, you know, pretty exciting for him. But these 2, Colon and Graf, have actually wrestled a few times in the past. First of all, they wrestled in college. They wrestled in the national semifinals back in like 2014, and Graf actually won that. And then these 2 wrestled actually at the Dave Schultz in 2017, whenever Graf teched Colon. So I actually, in this match, in this particular match, I'm giving the victory to Tyler Graf, making his first world team, and that's who I have at 61 kilograms. But let's move on to 70 kilograms when we have Ryan Deacon wrestling James Green. So this is, you know, Green, you may remember, wrestled Astronaut he wrestled him at the World Team Trials. They also wrestled at Beat the Streets, but Astronaut ended up getting hurt at World Team Trials, but really that's not the story here. The story here is about Green versus Deacon. So Deacon and Green wrestled at the U.S. Open. So this is, again, another rematch, which is pretty exciting. We get to see that whenever Green lost by a score of 8-6. Now, what's going to happen this time? Well, Deacon, here's the funny thing, guys. The funny thing, if you're a wrestling fan, which I know all you watching are huge wrestling fans, you have to look at what happens in college and what happens at the world level as a little bit differently. Ryan Deacon placed 6th at his national bracket this year. He lost that bracket to Jason Nolf, who ended up winning at 157 pounds. Now, Jason Nolf's not even in the Final X qualification right now because he lost at the World Team Trials, but Deacon now has a great chance to win it, and I actually think he is going to win it. So I have Deacon winning at 70 kilograms. Moving on to 74 kilograms. Big match, which I think is exciting. You have Jordan Burroughs versus Imar. Now, Imar beat, just like we were talking a little bit about Jason Nolf. Nolf bumped up to 74 kilos, and Imar beat him at World Team Trials. But Burroughs versus Imar. Now, these two have wrestled before. They actually wrestled last year at Final X, and what happened? Well, Burroughs won. Obviously, Burroughs is the Burroughs won bronze last year at World Team Trials, or World Team Trials at Worlds. He won bronze, and I think that Burroughs will ultimately make the team again and beat Imar because of just his dominance and how he beat Imar. Now, Isaiah Martinez, I keep calling him Imar. That's his nickname. If you guys do or do not know that, but last year, Burroughs beat him first 4-1, and then he teched him 11-1. So that's why I got to give Burroughs a spot here at this weight. And at 97 kilograms, we have Kyle Snyder versus Kyvan Gadsden. Now, these two wrestled last year. This is, again, another rematch. I mean, are you excited to see these rematches? Please let me know. As always in the comments, are you excited to see these rematches, or would you rather see new guys wrestling? I don't know. I'm pretty hyped for it. But Kyle Snyder over Gadsden, they wrestled last year. Snyder, like I said, over Gadsden, won 9-0 and then 10-2. Those were the scores at last year's Final X. Now, I have to give that victory to Kyle Snyder again, and Kyle Snyder is going to make the world team. But let's not forget let's look at who is going to make the complete USA wrestling team. Well, at 57 kilograms, I have Thomas Gilman, who I had beating Dayton Fix, and I think he's going to do really well at Worlds. At 61 kilograms, Tyler Graf making his first World Team, and I think can do well for Team USA. At 65 kilograms, Yanni Diakomahalis. Now, he already beat the number ranked guy in the world that beat the streets. Can it happen again at Worlds? I think Yanni gives a pretty good shot at making that happen. At 70 kilograms, Ryan Deacon coming in hot is going to wrestle very well. 74 kilograms, Jordan Burroughs, of course, took bronze last year. I think is going to win a gold medal this year, just my prediction. He's just wrestling very well, and Burroughs just always finds a way to bump it up another level. Of course, he teched Askren at Beat the Streets, but this is a little bit more serious to him. And at 79 kilograms, Kyle Dake, a returning gold medalist, I think he's going to win a gold medal again. At 86 kilos, we have David Taylor. If he's not injured, which, I'm really praying that he's not injured. I really hope that he does make the team. David Taylor at 86 kilograms has potential to win a gold medal yet again. At 92 kilograms, as a fellow Penn Stater, we have Bo Nickel, and I think for the first time ever, he's going to make the world team and has a shot at medaling for sure. At 97 kilograms, Kyle Snyder, we've seen him win the Olympics, win world medals, and last year he took silver. I think he's got a shot again to at least medal, probably win the Worlds. And then at 125 kilos, we have Gable Stevenson, who has wrestled junior worlds in the past, wrestled really well at nationals, wrestled really well at the World Team Trials, and if he makes his team, I think he can do really well for Team USA and put Team USA over the edge to hopefully win a World Team title, and maybe, a lot of these guys, if they medal, can qualify a lot of weights for the Olympics, which is coming up in 2020. This is a very exciting time going on right now in Final X. Final X Rutgers, Final X Lincoln. Will you be there? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure you check out these other videos all about wrestling and news, tips, and lifestyle. Thanks for watching.